Iska is an ugly simp loser who happens to be the strongest swordsman in the world. But his life takes a turn when he falls for the enemy princess and betrays his own people in hopes of getting some sloppy toppy. It all started when the Empire started imprisoning humans with the power to use magic. However, a nation called the Nebulous Sovereignty gave home to these mages and witches, which started an endless war between the two nations. Inside a maximum security prison, a pink-haired girl is broken free by Iska, an Empire soldier. After breaking her chains, Iska gives her some cash and snacks to survive a few days and sends her on her way. Soon after, Iska's little jailbreak stunt catches the attention of the authorities, and they slap him with a prison sentence for busting out an inmate. After 1 year in prison, Iska is granted freedom once again, so he can make amends and help the Empire in the 100-year-long war. His job is to take down an astral mage, a purebred who is the direct descendant of the Grand Witch Nebulous. In the past, Nebulous turned the Empire into a sea of flames, and her descendants are called purebreds due to their great astral powers. Iska is tasked with assassinating the one they call the Ice Calamity Witch. Just then, a pedestal rises from the floor and Iska is granted weapons to aid him in his task. When the higher-ups ask if he needs anything else, Iska requests 3 units of his choice. Somewhere in the city, a girl named Neen is working as a waitress when her friend Jin shows up looking like a rejected anime protagonist, who is too serious for his age and has a face only a mother could tolerate. Jin tells her Iska has been released from prison and is ready to get back to the field, so they'll be heading to the front lines with him tomorrow. That night, Iska is let go from the prison and takes a good look at the sky since he hasn't seen it in a year. Soon after, Jin and Neen show up, and one of them is definitely more excited to see him compared to the other. Just then, Mismis, the captain and last member of their party, shows up looking all thick and petite, to say the least. She immediately falls flat on her face and then starts throwing a tantrum about how she's a midget, despite being 22 years of age. However, she is delighted as their squad unit in 07 is back on duty. On the way, they discuss the dangers of this mission, with Mismis revealing the Ice Calamity Witch is said to be the strongest mage to ever live. However, since the Nebulists don't have any info on Iska, Jin is confident they can catch them off guard and complete this mission. He also believes the board is desperate, or else they wouldn't have released Iska from prison just to carry out a random mission. Iska's freedom lies in the success of this mission, but he is more focused on ending this hopeless war. The next day, the squad arrives at a reactor facility and Neen reveals it is still under construction because the mages keep attacking it again and again. Using her degree in engineering and Sherlock senses to good use, Neen notices all the imperfections in the reactor until Jin shows up with all his moral yapping no one is interested in. He mentions how the war is now driven by emotions rather than logic, so someone must pull an Eren Yeager and forcefully stop it at the cost of becoming a villain. Later, as the squad drives to a meeting point through the forest, their jeep is suddenly attacked by an astral mage. They are still in the Imperial territory, so that means the Nebulous have somehow sneaked into their lines without alerting the front lines. Just then, Neen receives a backup call from one of their teams, and while they are discussing their next plan of action, a fireball is hurled at the team. Iska cuts through it using his black sword, revealing 2 mages behind the forest. However, the mages had a larger number and were merely hiding using some sort of concealment spell. Despite being outnumbered, Unit in 07 is confident in their odds and starts the attack by sending rockets at the mages. In a matter of seconds, Iska and Jin manage to knock out every single mage unconscious. Jin comments on how Iska alone would have been enough for this many mages if he hadn't gone rusty in prison. Just then, the ground starts shaking beneath them, and out comes a giant stone golem produced by another astral witch named Rin. However, Iska cuts through its arm with ease and asks the squad to go ahead while he takes care of the rest. Soon after, Iska manages to corner Rin and asks her about the Ice Calamity Witch, but she would rather die than betray her. She makes another pathetic attempt to catch Iska off guard, but ends up flat on her face, looking like a failed TikTok stunt. Just then, her senior Alice shows up revealing herself to be the Ice Calamity Witch, and sends the whole forest back to the Ice Age. It turns out that it was all part of Alice's plan to freeze and destroy the reactor without causing an explosion. However, she does not know that Iska is a former Saint disciple and can't grasp how he managed to defeat someone as strong as Rin. After exchanging some words, the two begin battling and Alice overwhelms Iska with a barrage of ice shards. However, Iska's white sword is capable of casting astral magic, allowing him to counter the attack. Clearly having the upper hand, Alice asks Iska to give up, but the man refuses, claiming he needs to put an end to this pointless war. Alice is taken aback by his words and backs off, revealing that she wants to defeat the Empire and unite the world in an era of everlasting peace. Amid her speech, she slips on the ice rock, but Iska catches her midair, turning their battle into a cringy rom-com moment. Alice gets all flustered and calls her giant pet owl to fly them out of here, stating she won't be so kind the next time they fight. After she leaves, the squad returns and is relieved to see Iska in one piece. Back home, Alice spends the whole day in the bath trying to wash off the shame of Iska's touch. As Rin tends to her needs, all Alice can think about is her encounter with the man, which frustrates her. Demanding a change of scenery, she decides to visit the opera house in the neutral city to watch the tragic love story of a night. As she's gushing over the sad ending of the play, a man sitting behind her offers his handkerchief to wipe her tears. After the play ends, she thanks the man for the kind gesture, but as the lights turn on, the man turns out to be Iska himself. Before coming here, Iska had trouble sleeping, so Mismis came to check up on him. With her pathetic skills on the battlefield, she figured playing squad mama was the best way to distract everyone from her incompetence. She then asked Iska to spill the tea, and the man revealed he couldn't stop thinking about his battle with Alice. To cheer him up, Mismis decided he needed a change of scenery and took him to her room, forgetting she has all her bikinis on display. Later, she made him tea and gave him a ticket to the opera, the same one Alice was going to attend. She had already watched the play 9 times before, so she wanted Iska to have the last one. The next day, while Iska was on his way to the opera, he recalled meeting his master Crosswell in the forest, who gave him the astral swords he uses today. During the play, Iska could not focus because the woman sitting next to him kept crying like a so he gave her a handkerchief to shut her up. After the play ended, the two finally saw each other's faces, which brings us to the present. Alice believes the Empire sent him here and decides to settle things there, but Rin reminds her battle is strictly prohibited in the neutral city. After acting like a must-have blonde tsundere in every anime ever, she takes her leave but is paranoid, thinking Iska must be following her. However, Rin reveals Iska did not move until they were outside, so they are safe for now. Despite being clearly frustrated, Alice tries to brush it off and heads to a restaurant for some food. However, all the tables are taken and the waitress gives them a choice to share it with someone. Much to their surprise, that person turns out to be Iska. As Alice chokes on water, Rin gets all defensive and asks why he's following them everywhere. However, Iska pleads innocent, claiming he had booked the table in advance because it was close to the opera house. The man has a point, so they decide to share a table with Alice, asking Rin to always be on guard. Later, Rin suggests they leave the restaurant, but Alice does not want to give the impression that she ran away from him. When they reach for the menu at the same time, Iska apologizes and decides to share it with her, causing Alice to blush. They call for the waitress to place their order, and surprisingly, they order the exact same thing. After the food arrives, Alice starts warming up to Iska due to the similarities they share, but Rin reminds him to stay on guard. When Rin expresses how pasty should really be cooked, Iska and Alice team up against him in this debate. That night, Rin mentions how they normally report the sightings of an enemy to the Queen, but she suggests keeping today's events under wraps for now. She then suggests Rin throw away the handkerchief Iska gave her, reminding her that he is an enemy who might become an obstacle in the future. However, Alice blames Rin for making that comment about pasta, which forced her to side with Iska. Later that night, both Iska and Alice are feeling the early stages of attraction, which makes it harder for them to fall asleep. Iska then dreams of traveling on a train with Crosswell, when it's attacked by a bunch of monsters. Just then, a blonde mage with ice powers shows up to their rescue. The next day, Iska is doing endurance training with his squad with Mismis, reminding everyone how useless she truly is. Just then, a fellow recruit RIZZ greets them, revealing they will be under her command from the next mission. Mismis is worried because RIZZ's nerdy strategies are too smart for her peanut brain to handle, but RIZZ believes they will be fine. She learns that Iska has been staying up at night, so she decides to give him a ticket to an art exhibition. She won it in a bet, but since she doesn't really care much about art, she suggests Iska makes good use of it. Meanwhile, Alice visits her mother Milivere, who asks her about the swordsman she fought near the reactor. Milivere was told Iska was just as strong as Saint Disciples, who are the strongest soldiers in the Empire. She asks Alice to look at the crystal above, which holds the body of their founder. Milivere explains how the founder fought tens of thousands of the Imperial Emry soldiers by herself, yet life runs through her body. She reveals the founder had a twin sister, none other than Nebulus I, who is their ancestor and the origin of the royal bloodline. The Empire never knew about the twin sisters, so when Nebulus passed away, they thought it was the founder who died. Alice notices that the crystal is weakening, and Milivere tells her it first happened when she fought Iska near the reactor. Milivere reveals such things happen when the astral power senses danger to its existence, so she believes it has something to do with Iska. Alice recalls how Iska used astral magic with his sword, but decides to keep it to herself for now. Later, Rin catches her lacking again, so Alice decides another change of scenery is needed. Since Iska already knows she went to the opera, she decides to go somewhere else this time to avoid him. The next day, much to her frustration, she meets Iska outside the art exhibition and can't understand why he's following her everywhere. Iska suggests they go together since they are already here, but Alice, in a completely moronic fashion, decides to go in the opposite direction. After getting lost in the city for many hours, she returns to the fountain where Iska greets her again. He reveals he pretty much saw the entire show, but could not find her anywhere, leading him to believe she got lost. He offers to show her around, but she accidentally slips out that she is a princess of the nebulous sovereignty and can't hang out with the swordsman of the empire. Despite them being on opposite sides of history, Iska rizzes her up by saying art has no borders, which makes her blush and a little wet down the drain. Later, the two start at a painting together, and Alice asks him why he likes this particular piece. Iska starts pointing out small details in the painting that a beginner won't notice, and Alice looks at him with a gentle smile on her face, clearly showing signs of affection towards him. However, realizing she has her guard down, she quickly goes back to her self and buys him a drink to show her gratitude. By the end of the day, Iska falls asleep on a bench and unknowingly puts his head on her shoulder. Despite seeing him as an enemy, Alice sits there in one place, letting the man rest on him for as long as he wants. Later, the squad is buried in paperwork, so Iska brings soda for everyone before their peanut brains short circuits. Just then, RIZZ gives them a call and asks them to memorize everything as it's important to their mission. She then reveals she needs to talk to Iska, so she asks him to meet her at the Imperial Senate. Once there, the higher-ups review Iska's report, stating he held off on his own against the Ice Calamity Witch. Iska deems it a failure since he could not protect the reactor, but the higher-ups reveal his mission was to hold off against the witch, which he did. Now that they know more about her powers, it will help them greatly in the future, and they are so impressed by Iska that they are thinking about making a Saint disciple again. For that to happen, Iska needs to go on another mission and capture Alice alive. Later in bed, Iska thinks about the time he spent with Alice, and then calls Mismis to let her know that he won't be coming for training tomorrow. He reveals he's heading to the neutral city to talk to someone, and Mismis agrees to let him go if he takes her with him. She knows Iska has been stressed lately and wants to cheer him up as a responsible squad captain. Meanwhile, Alice recalls how they put Iska in the taxi when he was asleep and sent him off as a thank you for accompanying her. Just then, Rin walks in with a dossier revealing that Iska is the youngest Saint disciple in the history of the Empire. However, when he got promoted, he never stepped foot on the battlefield, which is why no one knows about him. Rin reveals how his title was removed, and he was put behind bars for a whole year for freeing an astral mage imprisoned by the Empire. Confused by this revelation, Alice asks Rin to locate the witch he'd freed. Rin asks for a few days to get things together, promising to find who that girl really is. After she leaves, Miliver walks into the room asking her why she's so interested in this enemy soldier. She gives her TED talk about the atrocities committed by the Empire, reminding Alice that they need to defeat the Empire to bring peace. Upon locating a painting in her room drawn by an Imperial artist, she scolds her, believing that artists are also pawns of the Empire. After Miliver leaves, Alice clutches onto the handkerchiefs she got from Iska, recalling the good times she spent with him. She then calls Rin into her room and sternly tells her to prepare a trip to the neutral city tomorrow. The next day, Iska is on the way to the city with Mismis, revealing he has a strong feeling she'll show up. On the way, they spot an albatross, and Mismis reveals how these birds are very rare to spot in the Empire. Later, Iska arrives at the city and meets Alice next to the fountain. Mismis asks Iska who this thick blonde is, and Alice steps in, proudly introducing herself as the Ice Calamity Witch, like she's a celebrity around here. The four of them head to a discreet location, and Alice asks Iska about the mage he freed a year ago. Iska reveals she was merely a kid with weak astral powers, and he could not stand the Empire torturing an innocent girl for the sake of war. Alice calls him a hypocrite, mentioning how he came to execute her just a few weeks ago. However, Iska reveals that despite his pleas for peace, the Empire does not listen to him, and neither does the Nebulous. Thus, he decided to capture one of their direct descendants, hoping he could use her to force a peace treaty. However, Alice reveals such a strategy will never work, because people in their nation have a deep hatred for the Empire that won't go out until they win this war. However, Alice is impressed by Iska's compassion and asks him to serve under him. Rin starts throwing a fit because, at this point, Alice's absurdity has reached new heights of clownery. Just then, A dark power emerges in the area, and the sky shatters, revealing a white-haired lady who Alice recognizes as the founder Nebulous. Mismis believes Alice lured them into a trap, but Alice herself had no idea this would happen. Nebulous notices that Iska is carrying the astral sword and starts torching the city without a second thought. Meanwhile, Miliver senses a strong astral power resonating and realizes that the founder has broken through the crystal. She is quite pleased, believing that they will end the war soon with Nebulous' power by their side. Back in the neutral city, the squad survives the first attack, but Iska cannot understand why Nebulous is attacking her own descendants. She reveals it's the astral power's auto-defense system that reacts to danger, but they don't know what the danger really is. Alice is quite frustrated, revealing she wanted to settle things with Iska alone today, but everything is ruined because this stupid founder has shown up all of a sudden. When Alice asks the founder to stop, Nebulous believes she's joined the Empire and starts attacking her. Luckily, Rin guards her with her powers but gets burned in the process. Iska asks Alice to cool her body down with her ice magic and tells Mismis to take Rin to the hospital. Iska then pulls out his swords, and Nebulous immediately recognizes them as Crosswell's swords. However, she knows Iska isn't strong enough and starts attacking her. Alice and Iska team up to stop her attacks, yapping about how she is no longer needed in this world and should go back to hibernating. Amid their fight, Iska reveals they are in the neutral city, so he and Alice have the same goal of protecting it. This allows them to trust each other, and the two work together in a spectacular fashion to defeat Nebulous. After she's gone, Iska tells Alice he cannot simply switch sides, but what he can do is call a truce for today. Alice agrees, stating they will go back to being enemies tomorrow. A few days later, the squad is at a casino wasting money on a gambling machine, and Neen questions why they are here in the first place. 2 weeks ago, RIZZ had told Mismis they would be working under her for the next mission, so they could have one last vacation before the show begins. The squad assumes the mission might be a life-death situation, and RIZZ must have wanted them to enjoy it before they began. Jin, in his weak attempt to comfort them, says not to worry because every mission is a one-way ticket to the afterlife for these clowns. Mismis then reveals she came to the casino so they could hit the jackpot and buy a heavy-duty tank to ensure they survived the dangerous mission. As they return to gambling all their money, Alice arrives at the casino, and Rin gives her a tour, revealing that the city of Jurek is where people come for pleasure. Alice instead wanted to go to the neutral city, but Rin turned her down because she knew Alice just wanted to meet Iska. She takes her to the slot machines, where they walk right past Iska and Mismis without noticing them. However, Alice is only invested in her upcoming duel with Iska and wants to pick a perfect date for it. Rin then presses the button for her, and they somehow hit the jackpot on their first try. Rin gets super excited and runs off to get the staff, while people start gathering around her machine. Just then, Neen walks up to her, congratulating her and thinking this is enough money to buy the tank Mismis wants. Alice is not interested in the winnings. She gives away her whole bucket of coins to Neen, who takes it to the rest of their squad. Neen describes her as a thick blonde that looks like a princess, but Iska brushes it off thinking there is no way Alice would be here. Later, Alice and Rin are strolling in the city when they spot a fortune-telling corner, and Alice decides to check it out. Inside, she tells the old lady she wants to know when she will meet the boy she's thinking of. The lady then pulls out the cards, which appear to be a pair, revealing the person she's looking for is close by. In fact, she says they're always close by because they are connected with a bond that cannot be broken. Soon after, Alice meets up with Rin outside, and the two decide to keep exploring. As soon as they leave, Iska and the squad show up at this fortune-telling corner, and Iska tries to test his fortune. Turns out he draws the same cards as Alice, and the old woman tells him the girl he's looking for is close by. Back in the Empire, RIZZ gets an audience with the Imperial Senate, and they talk about something called the vortex. They reveal they need more reinforcements in that area and appoint Iska's squad to that area. They don't want to give direct orders to Mismis, so they ask RIZZ to play the villain and brief the squad on the details. RIZZ then calls the squad to let them know that everything they memorized is all pointless, much like their existence, because they have been assigned a new mission. She explains how the chow between who's the biggest clown started 100 years ago, right after the vortex was created. The vortex is the main reason for the existence of astral mages, but now another vortex has started to appear. It would be a pain if the nebulous sovereignty got hold of that vortex too, so Unit in 07 has to stop the enemy forces from gaining access to it. Back in the nebulous sovereignty, Alice is still clutching onto the handkerchief when Rin arrives and gives her a message from her sister Sisel. She reveals a vortex has been spotted in Midal Valley, and the Empire has sent troops to its location. She also reveals the Zhou family purposely withheld this information from the Queen, believing that they plan on harnessing the power of the vortex by themselves. To investigate further, Alice decides to visit the Zhou family herself, but finds the place completely empty. Just then, Rin notices the masked lord behind her with a knife and calls him out. The man is merely testing their skills and is impressed to see how sharp their senses truly are. They ask him what's the purpose of this, and the man reveals he carries a knife for self-defense because his astral powers are weak. Getting straight to the point, Alice asks her about the vortex, but the Lord states they don't have enough evidence to deduce that. He believes it could merely be a flux of the magma, but still suggests sending the troops to check. When Alice asks why they haven't informed the Queen, the man says it took some time to prepare the documents and their messenger is already en route to the Queen. Realizing he is trying to play smart with them, Alice decides to not waste any more time and leaves. The next day, Iska asks Mismis if she's reported their fight with Nebulous to the higher-ups, and Mismis reveals they were quite upset because she did not take any pictures of her. Just then, she spots her old friend Noro and introduces her to Unit in 07. Just then, Commander Nameless shows up in a cheap nomad cosplay and lines up the recruits. He gives them two orders, either secure the vortex before the enemy or destroy it if they fail the first order. The team goes on a search for the elusive vortex, but fails to locate it, only for Mismis to receive a message from Noro, informing her that a unit had gone MIA while searching for the vortex, and that they had lost communication with the two additional units dispatched to locate the missing team. With all the units regrouping back at base, Nameless says there is no need to rescue the missing soldiers, leaving Unit Nin07 frustrated. Iska is determined to question Nameless's decision and approaches him, but the man labels him a traitor for letting a prisoner escape. Nameless dismissively ignores Iska, refusing to waste his brain cells on a low-ranked clown like him, prompting Mismis to step in and ask Nameless on Iska's behalf. She introduces herself as the captain of Unit in 07, and even though her legs are shaking, she sums up the courage to ask him why he hasn't sent a rescue squad for the missing unit. The man does not answer, but at least Mismis gains some confidence, so much so that she decides to give her squad some much-needed fan service. Later, Alice and Rin arrive at a camp, and despite the guards telling her the area is off-limits, she continues forward like a bratty princess. The two then arrive at the giant pillar of light, and Alice immediately recognizes it as another vortex. Just then, the Masked Lord shows up with a girl named Kissing, revealing he was just about to inform the Queen about the vortex. Kissing hides behind the Masked Lord as if she's scared of Alice, so when the Lord asks Alice to leave the defense to them, Alice questions if Kissing is the really bad he says she is. However, Lord believes Kissing is even stronger than Alice. She asks what they will do with the vortex, and Lord reveals he wants to wage an all-out war with the Empire. Meanwhile, Unit in 07 learns about some astral readings from the base, which are caused by astral art. Jin is quick to realize their base is infiltrated, leading him to believe that the missing squads were kidnapped by the enemy. Mismis reveals the base has been shifted to a different location, and they are ordered to continue looking for the vortex. Just then, they spot a bright beam of light nearby and assume it is the location of the vortex. Soon after, Noro's squad shows up, and Mismis runs towards her for a hug like a complete moron. Much to their surprise, Noro reveals this light leakage was a trap, and her squad just fell for like a stupid rat who smelled cheese. Revealing the astral marking on her neck, Noro starts choking Mismis and yaps about how she is actually with the nebulous sovereignty. Just then, all of Noro's squad members fall like dominoes, one after the other at the hands of an invisible soldier, who reveals himself to be Commander Nameless. The man wants to execute Noro right here and now, but one of her squad members makes the stupid decision to cast a fire spell, giving Noro time to escape with an unconscious Mismis. Nameless is about to throw a knife at her, but Iska deflects it, knowing all too well the knife would hit Mismis too. Nameless is not too happy about Iska's interference, but orders them to find the vortex while he heads back to base. Meanwhile, Alice, who is in the cave, comments on the small size of the vortex, revealing it will only benefit a few mages. Just then, Nora returns with Mismis, who is shocked to see Alice among her kidnappers. Alice doesn't want anyone else to find out she had contact with the enemy, so Rin quickly knocks Mismis out before she starts running her mouth like an idiot. Alice then has another wild idea and asks Noro to give her the location of the Imperial camp. Using Rin's golem to travel, she reveals she plans on fighting Iska one-on-one to settle their score. Meanwhile, Iska's squad follows footprints into a cave entrance where the vortex is located. The Empire has already started throwing missiles at the cave, so Bean calculates they only have about 20 minutes to secure the vortex. Meanwhile, Iska uses the chaos from the missile to enter the cave and manages to free Mismis. Nora tries to attack him with her lightning magic, but Iska gobbles it up with his sword. Just then, Lady Kissing shows up on the scene and captures a live missile with her strange magic powers. After she deletes the missile from existence, she turns her attention towards Iska, revealing she was ordered to execute the Imperial soldiers. Iska asks Mismis to stay in cover because Kissing is a powerful purebred. As she launches several attacks at Iska, the man manages to deflect them with his sword, which is something she never expected. Seeing how her normal attacks are useless, Kissing regenerates the missile she caught earlier and decides to blow up Iska. Surprisingly, Iska comes out unscathed, causing Kissing to get frustrated and attack him recklessly. However, Iska uses his quick feet and superior strategic prowess to close the distance and strike her in the stomach, causing her to drop unconscious. As soon as Kissing drops, Nora runs away like a and Mismis rushes to Iska to make sure he's okay. Just then, the masked lord appears behind him, and even when Iska quickly turns, he gets wounded by his knife. Nameless then carries Kissing and quickly teleports next to Mismis, knocking her into the vortex. On the other hand, Alice and Rin locate the Empyrean base but find it completely empty. Just then, Rin notices an invisible enemy and saves Alice from getting chopped. After she takes the hit, Nameless removes his invisibly and Alice decides to punish him for hurting Rin. As the two begin fighting, Alice underestimates Nameless and almost gets her throat slit. She then apologizes to him for not taking him seriously and promises to bring out her true strength. She uses Great Ice Calamity to freeze the entire base, but Nameless manages to get away just in time. As soon as Alice returns to the base, she sees Iska jumping inside to save Mismis. Determined to have her one-on-one, she jumps into the vortex after him like a total moron, scolding him for being hard to find. She asks him to grab his hand, promising to help under the condition that they finish their battle once they're out of the vortex. Accepting her condition, Iska grabs her hand, and she creates ice blocks for them to stand on. However, they hear a voice coming out of the vortex, which yeets Alice away and forces Iska and Mismis to enter it. Outside, Alice is frustrated because she could not have what she wanted and wishes for Iska's safety so they can fight in the future. Meanwhile, Neen and Jin locate Iska and Mismis and ask how they managed to survive the vortex. Iska, holding a small crystal in his palm, is unable to explain what really happened. In the nebulous sovereignty, Alice's sprinkler goes off recalling how Iska held her hand, and when Rin asks her if she's okay, she suddenly starts acting all defensive. Rin realizes Alice won't stop thinking about Iska until they settle their score, so she suggests they arrange another meetup in the neutral city, an idea that delights Alice. Back in the Imperial base, Jin playfully scolds Mismis for getting captured, getting knocked out, and then jumping into the vortex. Mismis, being the complete moron that she is, gets on her knees and begs for forgiveness. Iska tells her not to worry because she is glad they are safe. Just then, Mismis starts feeling a weird sensation on her shoulder. But before they can investigate it, RIZZ shows up with another mission. This time, the Empire wants them to infiltrate the Nebulous sovereignty under RIZZ's command, for the sole purpose of kidnapping Queen Nebulous. The mission is so absurd that Chin straight up thinks she's pulling their leg, and Iska backs him up, saying it feels like they've just been handed a one-way ticket to land with no return trip in sight. However, when RIZZ reveals the mission is in fact real, they ask her if she has a plan. She mentions the astral crests that were used to identify witches and mages during the trials. Those astral crests became a passport for the people who lived in Nebulous sovereignty, and people without those crests were likely to be spies from the Empire. The squad questions how they will enter the Nebulous sovereignty without those crests, and RIZZ promises them a clean way in under 3 days. Meanwhile, Alice and Rin are waiting for Iska to show up in the neutral city for 3 days, but the man is a no-show. Alice starts wondering where the hell he's been, and Rin goes over the possibility that he might have died in the vortex. However, Alice sternly believes that Iska is stronger than that and he must have survived that incident. She decides to split up with Alice, suggesting she searches in the main street while Rin looks at him on the other side. After Alice leaves, Rin explains how Alice is going to be their next queen, but some forces are eyeing the throne like the last slice of pizza, ready to take it for themselves. Now would be the perfect time to gain people's support in the upcoming election. But Alice is busy looking for Iska to unclog her pipes. Back in the Empire, the squad discusses the danger of this mission when Mismis starts feeling a weird sensation in her shoulder again. Neen asks her to take her jacket off so she can have a look, and much to everyone's surprise, Mismis now has an astral mark on her body. When she starts panicking, Iska gently holds her and asks if she remembers when she got it. Jin figures it must have happened when she jumped into the vortex, revealing that Mismis's body is a suitable host for being a mage. Mismis drops to her knees in disbelief, while Jin and Nings start discussing whether she should inform the authorities or not. Iska politely talks to Mismis, saying she can simply hide her crest and continue to be their captain. Jin and Ning back Iska's idea, and they promise to protect her at all costs. On the other hand, Alice returns to nebulous sovereignty after failing to locate Iska and starts looking for potential searching spots. Later, the squad gathers to discuss a way to hide Mismis's crest because a Saint disciple can easily spot it. The next day, Iska takes Mismis to the neutral city to calm her down, but regrets it because it feels like he's trying to hide her. However, Mismis tells her she feels stress-free here, so it was a good idea. Iska then mentions the good old peaceful times and promises to end this war so Mismis and the others can stop hiding their crests. After having a heart-to-heart, Mismis leaves to get some drinks while Alice visits the city all by herself to look for Iska. With blessing from the plot gods, she somehow makes her way to the bench where Iska is sitting. Feeling hot from all the sunlight, she asks him if she can sit beside him, but is shocked to learn that she's talking to Iska. She gets upset, revealing she has been looking for him for days, and even though she had a lot to say, now she is all blank. Iska offers her a seat, but she refuses to sit by him because they are enemies. When Iska suggests he stands up so she can be seated, now she wants to sit with her so they can be equals. The two get seated like they're auditioning for 5 feet apart, and Alice says she's happy to see him in one piece. When she notices that Iska is distracted, she asks him to spill his mind, but the man refuses, saying they are enemies. However, Alice insists he lets it all out, preferably inside her. Just then, Rin shows up to play the role of a cockblocker and gives her lemon juice. She offers one to Rin as well, and that's when Iska realizes Mismis left to get drinks too, but hasn't returned. As soon as he takes a sip, he falls asleep, prompting Rin to reveal she spiked it with a sleeping drug. She merely wanted Iska to think nebulous sovereignty is dangerous, so he could stop talking to Alice, but she never thought Iska would be stupid enough to actually drink it. Rin then suggests kidnapping Iska, and as soon as she picks him up, Mismis shows up on the scene. Alice informs Mismis that Iska is the enemy of sovereignty and declares her intent to take him into custody, but Mismis, unwilling to let them take Iska without a fight, impulsively unleashes her astral powers without fully understanding how. Despite Mismis's sudden display of power, Alice's overwhelming strength easily overpowers her, allowing Alice to take Iska without much resistance. Back in the Empire, RIZZ informs the Emperor that the Ice Calamity Witch has captured Iska and asks for further orders. While Rin is driving the car, Alice mentions Iska would be treated worse than a housewife by the nebulous sovereignty because he is a former Saint disciple. She orders Rin not to take Iska to the capital, so she instead takes him to the closest nebulous territory. Meanwhile, RIZZ informs the higher-ups about the kidnapping, but they don't care much and ask her to continue with the secret op. However, she has received direct orders from the Emperor to focus on retrieving Iska. An eyewitness has identified the vehicle he was carried in, and RIZZ knows Iska is being taken to the nebulous Sovereignty Province 13, Alcatraz. Alcatraz is a prison sector that also holds the heretical demon Salinger, the one who rebelled against Queen Nebulous. She believes Salinger might join the Empire if they free him from his prison. RIZZ then meets up with the squad, giving them the green light to rescue Iska. She shows them containers of astral energy that give them temporary crests on their skin, and Chin cleverly places one on Mismis's shoulder so she doesn't have to hide her real crest, at least for now. RIZZ then orders them to rescue Iska and raise hell on their way out. The other squad will use the chaos to sneak into the palace and capture the queen as part of their original plan. That evening, Rin and Alice arrive in Alcatraz, and Alice starts poking at Iska's chin because he looks cute to her. When a cat jumps in front of their car, Rin quickly presses the brakes, causing Iska to fall on Alice's shoulder. She quickly pushes him away, but this causes him to wake up and remember how he got here. He mentions his disappointment in Alice, claiming he never expected her to play such a cheap trick despite being a princess. However, Alice pins the entire blame on Alice, who then blames Iska for being so stupid. As Unit N07 passes the checkpost using its fake crests, Rin and Alice take Iska to a hotel, reminding him that he is in nebulous sovereignty and that resisting here will only get him executed. As they arrive in Alice's room, Rin suggests chaining Iska up in a separate room. Alice refuses because she does not want people to think she treats her prisoners poorly. Rin then decides to watch Iska at all times and asks Alice to move to the presidential suite. On the other hand, Unit N07 receives a call from RIZZ, who guides them to her location. Once they meet up with her, she decides to go with them to the Alalugan prison tower, where Iska is supposed to be held. Meanwhile, Rin is in the room with Iska and decides to come up with a plan to get rid of him. Grabbing a knife from the table, she purposely cuts her hand and comes up with an elaborate story about how Iska tried to attack her. She plans on using this injury to execute Iska and paint it as a self-defense case. Rin then starts attacking Iska with a knife, while Alice is in her room wondering what she should order for dinner. She decides to ask Rin what she'd like for dinner, only to be completely shocked when she sees that the crazy is actually trying to stab Iska with a knife. Alice, turned on by this wild display of passion, smirks and teasingly asks Rin if they can turn it into a three-way, prompting her to stop. Meanwhile, Unit N07 infiltrates the tower, but RIZZ goes her separate way after letting them in. Jin mentions how Saint disciples do not leave the capital under normal circumstances, which means RIZZ must be out for another secret mission. Inside the room, Alice decides to handcuff herself with Iska's, so he doesn't escape and Rin doesn't pull a stunt like this again. She then dismisses Rin, but Iska questions how she's going to use the restroom or sleep if she's chained with him at all times. Just then, Alice suddenly feels the need to relieve herself and asks Rin to bring the keys, only to learn that Rin is long gone because she dismissed her. Later, Rin arrives and chains him up with her own hand, allowing Alice to bathe in peace. Iska asks what they plan on doing with him, and Rin reveals she would lock him up forever if it was up to him. Just then, Alice walks in with only a towel, completely forgetting that Iska is there too. She quickly turns around to show her the jiggle physics of her cakes, but Iska is such a nerd he's more focused on the crest on Alice's back. People talk a lot of about her crest, but she's never let it move her. However, for some reason, she wants to know what Iska thinks of it. Iska tells her about his captain, who's recently become a witch, but despite her crest, he still respects her the same way he did before. The reason he fights has nothing to do with the astral crest. Instead, he views Alice as a worthy rival on the battlefield. This revelation hits Alice with such a wave of joy that she practically puts on a free show, flaunting every inch like she's trying out for on life-ins. Meanwhile, at the prison, RIZZ pays a visit to Salinger, the transcendent demon. Salinger was imprisoned 30 years ago by the nebulous sovereignty, but the man looks like he's on that Patrick Bateman routine. When RIZZ asks if he's really Salinger, he warns her not to speak to him so casually. Salinger asks how she got here in the first place, and RIZZ replies she has some old friends in the nebulous sovereignty. She then gets to the point, revealing that the Empire is about to whoop the nebulous sovereignty's butt, and they could use a Sigma Rizzler like him in the war. Even though he finds the idea of revenge even duller than RIZZ's character, he's a bit bored, so he agrees to help them for fun. At night, Alice and Iska talk on the balcony, and Iska comments on how beautiful the city looks at night. Alice tells him that despite looking peaceful, each of these buildings holds many violent criminals. She mentions how many prisoners don't have strong astral powers, except for the one guy who's held in the Olalugan prison tower, which also means Iska is not in the same tower. The Olalugan prison tower is the highest security prison that holds one of the strongest mages in the entire city, including the one they call Salinger the Demon. Salinger attacked the Queen 30 years ago, and because of his traitorous actions, he's been given the title of Demon. Just then, Rin shows up and reveals that someone from the Empire has infiltrated the city. Her eyes point to Iska, who reveals he's been cuffed up and has been under supervision the entire time. Rin adds that instead of the central province, suspicious groups have been spotted in 12 other provinces, and a warning has been raised in pretty much the entire nebulous sovereignty, including Alcatraz. Meanwhile, Unit N07 notices the alarm going off, followed by the emergency response team taking action. However, Jin is confident the guards have not spotted them and are merely responding to the alarm. As the floor starts shaking, RIZZ contacts the squad, telling them someone punched a giant hole in the prison wall using their astral powers. When Mismis asks about Iska, she reveals he is not here, hiding the fact that she had no intention of saving him in the first place. After she tells them to leave, two guards start approaching the squad, leaving them in a dangerous position. Meanwhile, Alice and Iska notice smoke coming out of the prison tower, and Rin reveals an explosion has happened there. The guards have also heard a large roar near Salinger's cell, leading them to believe he might have escaped. Alice knows that Demon would head straight for her mother's astral spirit, and there is no one other than her who can spot him. She orders Rin to prepare transport and reluctantly follows her order. After she leaves, Alice addresses Iska, saying she is not supposed to share details with him since he's the enemy. However, if he were to listen, it would take the burden off her chest. In a flustering manner, she pulls out a red handkerchief and places it on the table. This is her payback for the time he lent her his own handkerchief, but since she keeps that one inside her panties, she's got him a new one. With that, she says goodbye to Iska and runs downstairs, leaving the man confused. Inside the prison tower, the guards get closer to the squad, so Mismis bravely exposes her crest to grab their attention so Jin and Neen can take them out. As she runs circles around them like a complete moron, she gets herself cornered and is about to be executed. However, the other two take the guards out just as planned, and Mismis starts crying like Wust, stating how scared she is to die. After Neen comforts her, she decides to call Iska's phone to see if he picks up. Iska is all alone in the hotel when he hears his phone ringing and rushes to Alice's room to pick it up. Finally, he gets to talk to his squad, and the two fill each other in on their location and situation. The squad asks Iska to look for a way to unlock the handcuffs, and that's when he remembers the red handkerchief Alice left him. Running outside, he opens it up to find a key inside that unlocks the handcuffs. Finally free, he asks the squad to hold their position as he's on his way to help them. Meanwhile, Alice and Rin are driving to the prison when their car gets shot, forcing them to ditch it before they get blown up. Approaching the prison, Rin informs them that the Imperial Army has caused chaos in multiple parts of the province, so Alice vows to take care of all the problems one by one. As soon as the guards recognize Alice, they bow in respect, and Alice puts on her game face, taking full command on behalf of her mother. She then orders Rin to hold off Salinger while she takes care of the rest. Meanwhile, Iska reunites with his squad who want to skedaddle out of here. However, Iska asks for his swords and tells them to wait for 15 minutes before running towards the prison. Inside, Rin finally comes face to face with Salinger and calls him a petty thief for trying to steal the Queen's astral spirit. However, he claims he is merely collecting spirits as the Mage King, similar to how kings collect taxes from their people. His ultimate goal is to collect all spirits, cause why be a king when you can be a god? Fed up with his endless blabbering, Rin throws every pathetic trick she knows at Salinger, only for him to swat her away like an annoying fly, making her look like a wet noodle. He reveals his Earth astral spirit came from the purebreds, so Rin's third-class earthbending is no match for him. Realizing he even stole spirits from the royal family, Rin starts cussing at him and gets even more kicking. Tired of seeing her hideous face, Salinger decides to rid the world of her useless existence, only for Iska to show up and deflect Salinger's attack. Rin tells Iska who this man really is, and he agrees to help only if Rin lets him, and his friends go unharmed. Salinger fails to understand why someone from the Empire would help an astral mage, but he's too cool to give a damn anyways. Elsewhere, Sisel is looking up at the night sky when she notices their butler Shubolt's walking toward her. Curious about what is happening in their homeland, she asks the elderly butler for information. Shuboltz tells her the Empire's assassins have infiltrated their nation, and Salinger the demon has broken free from his prison. He further adds that Alice herself has taken command, adding to Sisbel's worries. Meanwhile, Iska and Salinger go head-to-head, and Salinger is surprised at how Iska slices through his invisible sound blasts. In reality, Iska is using the fire around them to notice and feel the blasts coming, which is why he is able to stop them. When Rin starts giving away Salinger's powers, the man knocks her out so the boys can have a fair battle. Amid more pointless yapping, Iska catches him off guard and lands a hit on Salinger, but the man has a wind barrier around his body that automatically blocks attacks. Not wanting to give up, Iska keeps pushing and Salinger uses another attack to blow him up from the ground. However, Rin yells at him to jump at the very last second and saves his life. Despite being enemies, the two form a temporary truce and decide to work together, believing they can outsmart Salinger. However, Salinger reveals he's come up with dozens of new tricks in the last 30 years, revealing that he is the only one who has harnessed the true power of the astral spirit. Meanwhile, as Alice is ordering the guards around like a girl boss, she gets ambushed by Nameless and stops him just barely. She asks if he's the one who orchestrated this attack, but Nameless asks him to stop being a and focus on the bigger things around her. Alice wants to fight him here, but the man disappears once again, leaving frustrated. Just then, she notices Salinger and Iska fighting each other on top of the bridge, much to her shock. Salinger reveals he's capable of harnessing opposing astral forms at the same time, and this opposing force is what makes his attacks even stronger. He then attacks them with a spell called Freezing Fire, and when Iska slices through it, the spells get even stronger because Iska's attack disturbs its balance. After Iska is apparently reduced to atoms, Salinger reveals his ultimate goal, which is to become one with the astral spirits. He reveals only 2 people in history have achieved that state, and one of them was founder Nendalus. When Salinger boasts about defeating Iska, Rin stands up to defend him, stating how Iska is the only man her master acknowledged as a rival. On top of that, he previously defeated the founder herself, whom Salinger considers his equal. Thinking she's speaking out of her ass, Salinger decides to finish her off, only to be surprised by Iska, who is still in one piece. As the two begin fighting again, Iska explains how his black sword cuts through astral arts, while the wild one replicates them. This means he used the black sword to cut the ice, and then used the same ice to escape the fire. Tired of this, Salinger mixes air and lightning to cause a thunder sandstorm, but Rin produces a golem to protect Iska. Seeing her as a nuisance, Salinger decides to finish her off first, but that's when Alice shows up and protects her with her ice magic. Despite all of Salinger's remarkable abilities, he ultimately proves to be no match for Iska and the skillful mastery of his swords. Finding amusement in the irony of fate for presenting him with such a formidable adversary, Salinger, rather than continuing the fight, leaps into the lower shafts like a total ending their battle in a draw. In the morning, Rin tells Alice that all the prisoners have been accounted for, and things have finally settled down. When Alice asks if she's okay, Rin tries to play tough, but Alice tells her to let her guard down as she's not only her master but also her friend. She asks about the situation in the other places, and Rin reveals the Empire soldiers have left their border. Alice looks up at the rising sun and realizes Iska chose to help them when he could have simply escaped after unlocking her handcuffs. Realizing her moisture alert is at max levels just thinking about Iska, she quickly snaps back to reality and decides to return to the central province so they can tell everything to the Queen. Meanwhile, Nameless arrives in the Empire but is surprisingly met with another Nameless wearing the exact same suit. Turns out the one that fought Alice outside the prison was actually RIZZ, who just wanted to test the advanced military suit. Deeming it too hard for someone like her, she decides she'd rather rely on her skills than these cheap nomad suits. They too then discuss the mission, mentioning how two squads were able to infiltrate the central province, which means they have access to the palace. Before leaving to brief the elders, RIZZ reveals the Emperor is highly invested in Iska, the successor of Black Steel. At the Senate, the 8 great apostles discuss the events that just happened and prepare for the next step in their plans. Meanwhile, Unit 07 successfully escapes Nebulous territory without encountering any problems, and want to discuss the luck factor in their mission. Iska is daydreaming about everything that happened after he was kidnapped. Everyone is happy until Iska has the stupid idea to ask Mismis about her crest, sending her into a panic. Later that night, Alice and Rin take some time to reflect on the events of the last few days, and after all the they've gone through, Rin finally acknowledges Iska as a respectful warrior. However, they remain unaware that Sisel is secretly spying on their conversation, listening in on everything they discuss. Hearing Iska's name, she is suddenly reminded of the Imperial soldier who had once broken her out of prison, causing her to question whether Iska could actually be the same person. Looking up to the stars, she prays she gets to see that man once again. Later, RIZZ enters a highly secured room to seek an audience with the Emperor, and informs her about Iska's return. When she's about to mention Salinger, the Emperor shows no interest in it, claiming she has no time for such minor inconveniences. Dressed as a cat girl who traps Discord mods with her cuteness, the Emperor is only interested in how Alice and Iska's love story will play out, which according to her is the most interesting thing that has happened in the last 100 years. Meanwhile, Sisel has a dream about her mother's demise and wakes up all out of breath. When she leaves her room to meet Miliver, she finds her conversing with some nobles and returns to her room. Soon after, Chevoltz informs her that the Queen has demanded her presence. Miliver asks her to visit Alsamira, an independent nation that is not neutral and is rumored to have formed ties with the Empire. She wants Sisel and her astral spirit to find out if the rumors are true or not. Having received her orders, Sisel exits the throne room, and Miliver is informed about the return of Elatir, the first princess. Back in the Empire, Iska returns from his physical examination and Neen informs him that they need to head out for duty in a week. Their crests need to be removed until then, but Mismis's crest isn't going anywhere, which has left her in despair. Just then, a brown-haired girl enters the room scolding RIZZ, who playfully apologizes for her mess up. The girl introduces herself as Michaela, a member of the medical coordination team, and reveals she's found a major problem in their reports. Mismis starts worrying, thinking she's getting exposed here, but in reality, Michaela reveals they have been working a lot more than the maximum limit. The limit is 30 days, but Unit 07 has been working way over that. Thus, Michaela generously grants them a 60-day vacation, much to the displeasure of RIZZ. As soon as they leave, Mismis gets super happy because they won't be examined for another 2 months. Now they have a lot of time to solve Mismis's crest situation, so Neen takes responsibility for booking them a place far away from the Empire. Back in the Nebulous sovereignty, Alice is buried in paperwork, so Rin suggests they take a break. Alice comments on the boring nature of her work and says she needs to have some excitement in her life. Just then, they hear a funfair outside and Alice suspects it must be for her sister Elatir. Wanting to welcome her back, she exits the room only to come across Sisel, who immediately takes a 180 upon seeing them. Rin comments that Sisel is a completely different person now, stating that she used to be energetic and cheerful. Alice says she does not blame her, because things have been super awkward since the three of them became candidates for the next queen. Alice wishes she could take the time off from the central province, but Rin strictly advises her not to because Sisel is already leaving on the queen's orders and the province needs its strongest mages here in case of an empire invasion. On the other hand, Sisel asks Shuvolts to drive her to Alsamira, but the man is a little worried because she's leaving without any guards. However, she plays a conversation with some shady nobles using her art, revealing she trusts no one but him. With her dream earlier, she strongly believes someone is going after her mother and wants to protect her no matter what. Masked Lord watches him leave and returns to his palace, where he's visited by the first Princess Elatir, who looks like 2016 Jacksepticeye if he was a thick woman. Lord tries to butter her up, but she gets straight to the point, claiming one of their own is involved with the Empire. She believes whoever this person is has not yet betrayed the nebulous sovereignty, but she must stop it before it gets out of hands. Meanwhile, Unit in 07 arrives in the independent nation of Alsamira to enjoy their 60-day holiday. Soon after, the ladies arrive in swimsuits and waves aren't the only thing rising at the sight of their divine duos. After swimming for pretty much the entire day, the squad walks back to the hotel with Jin carrying Mismis on his back. Neen asks Jin to take the captain back to the hotel while she and Ixit get something for dinner. As she leaves to take a quick bathroom break, Iska waits for her outside when a girl bumps into him. Taking a look at her face, Iska realizes this is the same girl he rescued from prison. But before they can catch up, Neen returns and catches Iska's attention. Iska explains he bumped into a girl, but turns around to see that Sisel has disappeared. Iska brushes it off and heads to the supermarket while Sisel runs a whole marathon to get away from that hideous being as soon as possible. As Shuvolts catches up, she happily tells him she's found the guy who broke her out of prison. At night, Sisel and Shuvolts leave the hotel late in the night, and Sisel uses her astral art to replay the moment she met Iska earlier. Using this replay, she manages to follow Iska's footsteps outside a hotel, and after consulting with her butler, she decides to pay him a visit. Instead of knocking, she just unlocks the door and walks in, and Iska immediately pins her down thinking she is an assassin. However, when the moonlight shines on her face, Iska recognizes her as the girl from before. She reveals she came here to see him and to invite him back to the sovereignty. Meanwhile, in the nebulous sovereignty, Alice is exhausted from all the work, but Rin reminds her they have a meet and greet tomorrow at 5 p.m. Just then, Miliver shows up at the door and asks Alice to accompany her. As Alice and Ren follow her, she takes them outside Sispel's room and mentions how she, despite being the queen, is also a mother. Even though the retainers don't see Sispel as a potential queen, she is still worried for her because Sispel just locks herself in a room all day. As her mother, she wants to know what Sispel is going through, so Alice agrees to help her. They split up to search her room and Alice finds an old newspaper of Iska's arrest under one of her plushies. Unable to connect the dots, Alice is left confused as to why Sisel would even know Iska in the first place. Rin figures Sisel must be investigating Iska, leading Alice to believe she must have seen her and the swordsman together. Rin adds that Sisbel's astral spirit can see only within 300 meters, which means there is no way she saw them in Alcatraz or the neutral city. The only explanation is that she must have heard their conversation, and Rin now thinks Sisel is suspicious of Alice. Back in Alsamira, Sisel introduces herself and politely asks Iska to get off her. Iska turns the lights on, and she apologizes for intruding in the middle of the night. She regrets not thanking Iska back when he freed her, so as a token of gratitude, she offers her bangle. Iska was probably expecting a sloppy toppy, so he turns the gift down. She reveals she read a lot about him in the newspaper and knows he lost his Saint Disciple status because of her. This is why she wants Iska to regain that honor by coming to the nebulous sovereignty. This reminds Iska of the time Alice asked him to serve under her, so the man asks why she chose him out of everyone in the palace. Sisel loses her cool for a second and reveals she cannot trust anyone, but then she gets embarrassed and leaves so Iska can think about his decision. After she leaves, Iska notices she's left her bangle in her room. In the nebulous sovereignty, Alice and Rin meet up with the queen until they couldn't find anything. Rin then respectfully proposes that they send Alice to Alsamira so Sisel can confide in her sister and let out her worries. Seeing no harm in Rin's suggestion, Miliver agrees to send Alice after her. In the Empire, the 8 apostles learn from a spy that Sisel has headed to the independent nation of Alsamira with only 1 guard. This would be the perfect opportunity for them to deploy their new weapon, which they call the witch hunting machine, and capture the purebred princess. Meanwhile, Yumin in 07 is preparing a barbecue for breakfast, but the girls notice how Iska is engrossed in his own thoughts. On the other hand, Elatir visits the masked lord again, and the two continue their conversation from the other day. Elatir then reveals that the ones getting in touch with the Empires are none other than her own sisters. The masked lord bursts into laughter thinking Elatir is joking, but when she assures her she's telling the truth, he jumps in like a simp to help in whatever way he can. She believes her sisters might betray the nebulous sovereignty, but since she loves them, she won't be able to punish them. So if that time comes, she wants the masked lord to be the judge. Seeing a woman in despair, the lord comforts her, promising to take care of her sisters in case of the worst. Meanwhile, Alice is on her way to Alsamira, while the bus conductor is yapping about a large beast called the basilisk. Just then, the driver suddenly hits the brakes and mentions he saw giant footprints on the road. Alice, being the girl boss that she is, leaves the bus to see a giant footprint in the front, which does not look like the one from the basilisk. She also notices a spill of machine oil and more footprints moving toward the city, which tickles her spidey senses. Inside the city, the squad is walking back to the hotel, and Mismis is tired as usual. Turns out, Iska had the brilliant idea of changing places because he didn't want Sisel to get involved with the rest of his squad. Due to all the heat in the area, everyone is sweating like pigs, which is causing Mismis's crest cover to peel off. This reminds her they need to find a way to permanently remove it, but Shin reveals that they were unable to find anything even after hours of brainstorming. Thus, he wants Mismis to enjoy some of their vacation before they go back to the drawing board. However, he also mentions that this city has items from both the Empire and the nebulous sovereignty, which means they can find the time Noro used to conceal her astral crest. Later, they arrive at the hotel and Iska leaves to get the currency exchanged. However, Jin spots him looking around suspiciously and realizes something is up. Soon after, Sisel shows up, so Iska takes her to a discreet location so they can talk privately. Once there, he asks Sisel how she managed to locate him so quickly given that he changed hotels to avoid her in the first place. Sisel reveals it's because of her astral spirit that lets her play the past like a video. As they get to talking, Sisel finally reveals she is a princess who is one of the official successors to the throne. Iska realizes Sisel is Alice's sister, which further confuses him as to why would a princess want a hideous Morn like him. She reveals it's because someone who has their eyes set on a greater goal is after their mother's life. If the queen were to die, the next step would be a full-scale war against the Empire, which would cause unimaginable death and destruction. Sisel learned of this plan with her astral powers, but because she doesn't know who is behind it, she cannot trust anyone right now. She then desperately asks Iska to join her so they can stop the war from starting again. Meanwhile, Alice arrives in the city and is met with Schubholz, who is worried because Sisel has gone off to God knows where. Iska says he does not want an all-out war either, but still, he cannot go with her. Sisel keeps yapping about the potential full-scale war which they must stop, but Iska says his goals are even bigger. He not only wants to stop the war, but also resolve the 100-year conflict between the two nations. When he proposes peace negotiations, Sisel says her people can never forgive the Empire for the atrocities they have committed. Iska recalls fighting behind Alice and is about to tell her she can rely on her sister. But just then, the masked lord appears out of nowhere with some mages to capture Sisel. Iska recognizes him as the man who kicked Mismis into the portal, and as the masked lord declares Sisel a traitor, she gets him with the you-know-nothing Jon Snow. However, masked lord makes it clear that he does not care about her story because all he wants is an upper hand in the election. As Sisel runs away, he orders his guards to capture her, but Iska stands in their way, reminding them that they are on the same side. Even when Iska insists they listen to Sisel's reasoning, the masked lord asks him to not interfere in the matters of the nebulous sovereignty. Just then, a giant machine lands in front of Sisel, which is the witch-hunting weapon created by the 8 apostles. Iska tries to stop the guards from capturing Sisel, but the masked lord once again tells him to keep his nose out of their business. Iska argues that Sisel must have a valid reason to contact someone from the Empire, but the masked lord mentions that her motives are irrelevant because any contact with the enemy is against the rules. Just then, Chin shows up with the squad like a Karen who is about to call the cops on their cookout. Mismis remembers the masked lord from their previous encounter, and Mean spots the Empire's experimental weapon in the distance. The weapon spots all the people with astral crests in the area as its targets, which unfortunately also includes Mismis. The witch hunter prioritizes Sisel since she's pure blood and goes after her. Ignoring the masked lord and his men, the man decides to join the battle, but Jin fires a warning shot at him, ordering him not to move an inch. Lord argues that he's merely here to catch a traitor, but Jin isn't going to let him off the hook for kicking Mismis into the vortex. Lord asks his guards to rain fire on the squad, and when they remind him that this nation is not involved in the war, he reveals the losing side will be the one to blame for any destruction caused here. In the meantime, the witch hunter is about to blow Sisel up, but Iska parries its laser and saves her life. Neen shows up too, determined to shut the machine down before it sends any data back to the apostles. Iska fights the machine head-on to buy some time for Neen, but soon realizes his swords cannot penetrate its armor. He constantly has to watch over Sisel as he fights the machine, prompting her to question why he's risking his life to save hers. Iska is tired of her constant yapping and tells her to shut the hell up, revealing he has no intention of letting anyone harm her. As he clashes with the machine again, Sisel is so moved her eyes aren't the only thing getting moist. Just then, Neen puts the coordinates in her missile launcher, allowing her to destroy the robot. On the other hand, Jin and Mismis barely escape the attack, only for the masked lord to appear right behind them. Jin engages in a close combat fight with the lord, but he is now aware of his astral power and gets himself hurt. Thinking on his feet, Jin pulls out a pistol and shoots him in the heart, but the bullet is blocked by the voice recorder he was going to use to wrongly accuse Sisel of treachery. With the evidence destroyed, the lord decides to recreate the scene when their founder torched the entire empire with flames. He starts spilling gasoline all over the place and asks his fire astral guard to light it up. However, his astral art stops working, leaving them all confused. Just then, they notice that Mismis is using her own wind astral art to blow out the fire, so he decides to capture her as a test subject. However, Jin shoots the mask and the ugly smug off his face, forcing the man to retreat. On the other hand, the witch hunter barely survives the missiles and switches to backup power to blow up everyone. As it charges up the laser, Sisel quickly recognizes it as the light astral energy. When the laser is shot, Iska and Sisel barely dodge it. But the attack is so strong the explosions are heard by Jin and Mismis, who are far away from the area. As the witch hunter reloads the laser, Neen makes another attempt to shoot missiles at it, but this time her attacks had zero effect. Since she is more useless than Sakura in this situation, Iska asks her to regroup with Jin and stay out of his way. After she leaves, Iska charges in, slicing through the lasers with his swords, while Sisel stands there for moral support. Just then, she uses her power to replay a sandstorm that occurred here some time ago, causing the witch hunter to lose vision. This allows Iska to go straight in and destroy the machine's core. But as soon as they drop their guard, a purple light kidnaps Sisel, and the machine turns into a cool Pokemon. Soon after, Neen reunites with Mismis and Jin, but they realize the smoke from the explosion can be seen far out, and people have started gathering around the area to see what's going on. Meanwhile, Iska engages with the robot once again, but now starts struggling. That's when he notices someone using ice magic to push the robot back, and he knows only one person who's capable of such power. That person is none other than Alice, who demands her sister back. Just like when they fought the founder, Iska and Alice fight together in perfect synergy. But unlike before, the robot manages to counter their attacks. It then hits Alice that they are actually fighting an astral spirit, who soon starts talking to them in the spirit language. Seeing how the spirit will level the whole city without a second thought, Alice once again calls a temporary truce with Iska, asking him to fight beside her. Once again, the two start attacking the spirit and merge their powers to overwhelm the opponent. Soon after, they manage to defeat the spirit, and out comes Sisel, who was held prisoner inside its body. Soon after, the apostles lose contact with the machine, but they deem it a minor setback as they are ready for their next plan. Back in the city, Alice thanks Iska for the help but starts feeling conflicted, because he is still her enemy after all. Amid her non-stop yapping, Sisel finally wakes up and asks Alice how she knows Iska. Alice, in her typical tsundere fashion, claims she doesn't know him at all and forces Iska to back up her lie. Sisel already knows they're speaking out of their but decides to play along and asks Iska to be her knight. Alice gets jealous, but she cannot interfere because she just said she doesn't know Iska. The man is now stuck with the difficult choice of which sister to smash, but decides to run back to his squad like a total wuss. Back in the Empire, RIZZ and the Nameless are in the Emperor's room discussing Iska's unexpected heroics. When Nameless asks about the Emperor's whereabouts, RIZZ reveals she's out touching grass. Meanwhile, Salinger is out in the park thinking about how Iska intrigues him when he sees a cattail behind a tree. He asks the person to come out of hiding, who happens to be none other than the Emperor. Back in the nebulous sovereignty, Lord Mask returns to his palace and is ready to prepare Lady Kissing for the elections. At the same time, Alatir is summoned by the Queen, who addresses her for leaking information regarding Sisel's location and asks if she's even the real Alatir or not, causing her to smirk. Meanwhile, Rin is eagerly waiting for Alice to return in one piece, unaware that she is actually busy rizzing up Iska. Alice asks Iska to pretend he doesn't know her in front of her people, finding excitement in the fact that it's their dirty little secret. She then looks Iska up close and gets all flustered, realizing he's just as hideous close-up as he is from afar. With that, the two go their separate ways, hoping to see each other soon. That's it for this video. If you want more recaps like this, watch this video here.